everybody, and welcome to my show. My name is Jason DaCosta, and this is Consistent Preterism. Happy New Year, everybody. The first broadcast of the new year, coming to you live from DaCosta Studios, which is an 06 Chevy Silverado cab, quad cab, and suicide doors. No, I'm just kidding. She's a decent little piece, though. Anyways, hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's. I know I sure did. I was sleeping by about 9:37. Totally missed the ball drop, and totally okay with that. Otherwise, pretty uneventful weekend. Just doing a lot of things, gearing up for another another home build that I'm going to be doing here in about 2 to 3 months. I purchased a waterfront property that had a dilapidated, old, uninhabited cottage on it that hadn't been lived in for about 12 years. My cousin and I purchased this property, and we will be knocking down the property in a few weeks. First week of February, company's coming in to demo it, and then we're going to be rebuilding a beautiful house with a beautiful second-story back entertainment balcony, the whole nine. So should be great. But anyways, folks, I hope everybody's doing well today. Monday morning, back to work for most of us, back to the grind, and we're just trying to figure this whole thing out. So the title of this video, this audio, this podcast is, what if we are the literal descendants of Abraham? Now, this question has been asked of me numerous times throughout the years, throughout my sharings on Israel Only. And, you know, if it wasn't for a couple of things, if it wasn't for a couple of reasons, this could be a possibility, right? But those reasons are pretty significant, pretty strong, pretty concrete, pretty irrefutable reasons why that cannot be so. But if, let's just assume those reasons were not there, this would be a pretty interesting theory, wouldn't it? Because, well, for me personally, that morning in that hotel room, when I met a divine supernatural power that immediately took all of my sorrows, all my pains away, right? And it sounds like, it just sounds like a Christian hymn, doesn't it? That morning, I could be possibly fooled into believing that what I experienced that morning at 7:02 a.m. on March 2nd, 2011, that morning I could be fooled that perhaps, just possibly, maybe, that could be a baptism of the Holy Spirit, right? And because, I mean, look, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. It was sort of poured out upon me. It was sort of, you know, it came down from above, no doubt about it. And it eliminated all of my pain in a split second with almost a zapping power. That's the only way I can describe it. Is it was like an electrical force or an electrical zap that sort of popped me, and immediately, in a split second, extremely noticeably, by the way, everything was removed. And so, looking back at that experience, you know, having read the Bible and seeing what it says about this Holy Spirit and how the Holy Spirit brings joy and, you know, comfort and peace and everything, I mean, that kind of sounds about right? That kind of sounds about right. Now, of course, I never spoke in tongues, not even close. I never healed anybody. I never had any miraculous powers. I was never even able to convert a single solitary soul to Christ. And boy, let me tell you, did I try. I preached in season and out. I met with friends, random friends who I hadn't met with in years, and told them about the experience and how Jesus loved them. I met with cousins. I called family members. I rekindled old, conflicts, or not rekindled, but, reconciled old conflicts. And I was just going around telling people about what happened. But yet, my words had no power. My gospel, if you will, had no healing power. It didn't do anything for anybody. To this day, I can remember most of the people that I talked to or sat with, and I see them today, and there's no difference in their lives. They're not sold out for Christ. They never were. And they got the most honest, heartfelt, story and testimonial from someone who they knew clearly wasn't in the game prior to that. So, here I am going around realizing that my efforts are not working. And of course, the Christian would say, well, it's in God's time. Well, that was, 10 years ago. And all the people that I communicated with have since, either never even acknowledged Jesus or have completely fallen away immediately. A couple people came to church with me a couple times, and, they were falling asleep in the pews by, the passing of the offering plate. There's no passion there. So, it just didn't seem to be adding up, right? If it was the Holy Spirit, I surely lacked what the Holy Spirit was said to do, right? I didn't have any of the powers. I didn't have, any of the, the ability to, convince people or convert people and whatnot. And that's not why I ended up ultimately coming to the conclusions that I came to. I would have been happy as a pig in shit continuing in Christianity and, acting as if I have this Holy Spirit power. But the Bible led me elsewhere. And that's the whole point here, folks. When people ask, well, what if we're the actual descendants of Abraham? What if we are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? What if that story, that part of it, you have 100% correct, Jason? Because I can see it clearly, and I see the promises, how they were, physical descendant promises, and there's no way around that. I see that. But what if we are still here? What if the descendants are still here? And what if that's the reason why you experience that miraculous, supernatural taking away of all your pain and replacing it with unbelievable amounts of joy, peace, and happiness in a split second, mind you. This was not a gradual change. This was a 7:01 a.m. I wake up a certain person, and by 7:02 a.m. I'm a completely different person. Okay, so this is what happened to me. And I'll never forget that day. Perhaps easily the greatest day of my life because of what happened. Because it really was, it was unbelievable. You don't go from being someone who never talks about God, never talks about anything to do with God, never talks about supernatural divine things, never talks about the Bible. You don't go from that person to an instant fanatic in a split second for no reason, okay? So, again, I like to tell people who doubt my experience that they're crazy, all right? They're absolutely crazy. And I like to tell people who doubt the existence of God that they're also crazy. No offense to you atheists. I get it. You need proof. You need to see the proof yourself, and you haven't seen it. I get it. That's where I was prior to that morning, that fateful day. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own belief. But I still think that they're crazy because of what I experienced. But of course, I can't project that onto anyone else. I can't take anyone else back there and put them in that room with me to experience what happened. So be it. That's their prerogative. It's their choice. Their choice. But what if we are the descendants of Abraham? What if? Wouldn't that kind of solve some of this confusion, right? Why do some people have these unbelievable experiences of divine pouring out of something, some sort, Is it because we're still descendants of Abraham? Is it because that promise that Abraham's descendants would become as numerous as the stars in the sea? The stars in the sky and the sand on the sea. Is that promise still existing? Is that a true promise? Was that real? Well, these are questions that people ask me. And many of them have actually pointed back to that moment in my hotel room to say that I am one of Abraham's descendants. But here's where it goes terribly awry. If one takes the Bible as a whole, right, as the same God in the Old Testament is the same God in the New Testament. The promises of the New Testament are certainly fulfilling the promises of the Old Testament by the wording and by what's said. Nobody would deny that. People would deny that it's true. People would deny that it's accurate. People would deny that it's cohesive, yes. But nobody's going to be dumb enough to deny that the New Testament writer's intent was to fulfill Old Testament promises to Israel, right? I mean, even the dumbest of all dumb scholars, or biblical theologians, I should say, even the futurist of all futurists, even the futurist right now who is hiding in his bedroom, in his closet, with his Bible in hand, waiting for Jesus to bust out of the clouds like Rambo in a helicopter, taking bullets off the chest. Even that futurist can understand that these New Testament authors, their intent and their goal was to fulfill promises that were made to Old Testament Israelites. I mean, that's clear. Now, where they take that is their own choice. How far they push that to include others is their own choice. But the point that I want to make about this theory that perhaps we are the descendants of Israel, and that is why some of us receive this so-called blessing and others don't. Well, if the New Testament didn't say what it said so clearly, you may have a case. You may have a shot. But unfortunately, the New Testament does not allow room for that to be. The New Testament was written, now again, there's much controversy and debate, but overall, the New Testament was written in the 1st century AD. Okay? And we're not going to get into debate about when this book was written, if this was a forgery, if this was real. Who cares, right? What's in the New Testament was mostly written in the 1st century. And it was pretty much all about this figure named Jesus, who supposedly lived in the 1st century around approximately 30 AD. I'm sorry, that was when his ministry was. But his ministry, I should say, was around 30 AD to 33 AD, give or take. And the rest of the letters, or the letters in the New Testament, sort of chronicle and document his doings. They document what he said. They document the miracles that he did. Then we have epistles of Paul that also talk about these things and that sort of take those ideas of Christ and sort of elaborate further on them and push it out further to different regions and geographical locations. We have epistles from guys like James, Peter, John. We have the book of Revelation. We have the book of Hebrews. We have a lot of different writings in the New Testament. But one thing that's true in all the New Testament writings, without exception, is that they were all in the last days. They were all stating that the times that they were living in when they wrote were the last days. They were not some alien type or alien breed that used terms like soon and near and at hand to describe events 2,000 years later. No. And no, a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord. No, that's not your ticket to interpret all these very clear and easy words in the most wackadoodle fashion you can imagine. No, that doesn't work either. These authors understood that everything was ending very soon. The judge was at the door. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that the final judgment in context, keyword in context, was at hand, then I don't know what does. Because the judge was at the door in the first century when these authors wrote. Jesus in the first century supposedly told his contemporary audience that some standing there will not die before he returns for them in glory. Jesus told all of his disciples on the Olivet Discourse that all the things which he predicted on that mount would come to pass before that very generation passed away. Again, 2 plus 2 equals 4, folks. 2 plus 2 does not equal 17. If Jesus said that all these things that he was saying would be fulfilled in this generation, clearly he was giving his contemporary audience the warning that many of them, would live to see the things which he was talking about. Hence, truly I say to you, some standing here will not die before you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Every book in the New Testament beats this point to a pulp. They were in the last days, not us. They were looking forward to the return and coming of their Messiah, who would rapture them up into the clouds, into heaven, in glorified angelic bodies, where they would forever be with the Lord in this new Jerusalem. So any idea or attempt to make us Abraham's seed today just doesn't work based on that alone. Because the story ends at the fall of Jerusalem. Rightfully so. The law goes away. There's no more animal sacrifices. There's no more temple. There's no more altars. There's no more, elements of the law in that regard. Very key and important elements of the law. I mean, the temple. Hello. Never again would that be. So it just makes perfect sense why this would be the conclusion of this law-death narrative that Paul defines in 2 Corinthians when he says that the ministry of death and condemnation was written on stone tablets. He's talking about the law given to Israel. And that's what was in focus here, nothing more. So if someone wants to say that we're descendants of Abraham today, I usually tell them, well, that would be fine, except the New Testament doesn't allow for it. The New Testament shows a very imminent, near, soon approaching end that was at hand when the first century writers wrote these letters and penned these books. Now, a friend of mine, you know who you are out there, he believes that the New Testament is a crock of crap. He believes that Paul was some kind of fraudster, and that all the letters of Paul are, shouldn't be trusted. I mean, big conspiracy guy, right? And he believes that this is still ongoing. He believes that I am a descendant of Abraham. He's told me this as recent as last week. And he believes that that's why what happened to me, because I'm a literal descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I'm a recipient of that promise. And he says that the only thing that is still ongoing is the Old Testament. Right? Now, of course, that's a little odd because, again, the time when the temple would pass away would signify the end of all things, according to the story. And there just doesn't seem to be any good reason to believe that Israelites, descendants of Israel, are still being gathered from the nations today. So, I mean, it's a slippery slope once you start saying that the New Testament is junk. We should only pay attention to the Old Testament. Because, I don't know. It's very odd. But that's his theory. His theory is that I think he and others are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And perhaps he'll come away from that. Perhaps others will come away from that. I don't know. But I just wanted to talk about it a little bit and get people thinking as to why this theory would not work. If not for all the time statements, you might have a case. You might be able to say, okay, well, clearly it's still going because Jesus hasn't returned yet. Clearly, all the events of the New Testament were not at hand. They were actually thousands of years away, and it's still going, and Abraham's descendants are still being gathered in. Okay, that's possible, maybe. But no, you cannot do that because you're bound by the statements of the New Testament. You're bound by the fact that there is no temple, there is no law, there are no animal sacrifices, there are no covenant commandments. All of that is gone. And clown boy James Valiant would say, whoa, the Jews would disagree. Well, yeah. The Jews really don't have a clue what they're doing today. Okay, they really don't. If a Jew was to compare what he does today to the Old Testament Jews, the biblical Jews, the true covenant Jews, they would look nothing alike. They're two totally different entities. So a Jew today is nothing more than another religion, another false religion made up of a bunch of man-made traditions and rules and laws, and has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So folks, I just wanted to put this out there. First sharing of the new year. Are we descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? My vote is in, and I say not a chance. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like-a-rooski. If not, take a freaking hike-a-rooski, and we'll catch you on that flippity. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.